is performed by professionals or under the supervision of professionals. Accordingly, UHF 63 and the producers must warn that anyone attempt to recreate or reenact any reply performed on this show does so at their own risk. Hello, heroes. Welcome to Hero Talk with GMPC Ed. Ed, that's me. And we're going to be going through some Facebook replies from the unofficial Hero Facebook page. And the first one we got is just got done reading the adventure via PDF, so the villains look pretty scary and powerful. Has anyone tried running this adventure? Curious how you handle it. Well, I only ran this once back in 3rd edition when this came out, and how I handled it was, first of all, it was one of the few that actually didn't specify what power level the character should be or anything. So I kind of had to go by what I saw with the villains in this. And simply put, standard superheroes can handle majority of this adventure. If you have 4, of course you gotta modify it if you have less or more than 4 of the characters, with the exception of a few like Fear or War. They're super tough, and players better have their stuff together to take on those guys. So you kind of have to run those guys separately. So as almost like individual villains for the heroes to take out or deal with. So that's how I handle it. There is other ways to handle it too. You could modify the powers so it's less active points and so on, or more active points if you're doing a cosmic game, and they'll wipe the floor against these villains if they're cosmic. So that's how you handle it. Next we have, how would you build a champion's Thaumaturge differently from a fantasy hero spellcaster, other than obvious point value, modern day skills? I'm talking about their magic powers. What I've done, and it's even before I found something in the rules that confirmed what I was doing, basically you just strip all the limitations and you just give it a multi-power over a power pool, whatever's allowed by the GM. That's pretty much what I do in my game for superhero spellcasters, Thaumaturge. There are some great examples as far as the powers are concerned, but that's not dealing with your question. But like I said, just strip the limitations and put it in a multi-power or grab a power pool. Next we have, if D&D didn't exist, what character archetypes would you build for Fantasy Hero? Would they be similar to D&D fighters, mages, clerics, and thieves, or different? Well, this is kind of an interesting question. If D&D didn't exist, you'd still have the main references such as Tolkien, which is what D&D is all borrows heavily from. So you would have those races. So if you take that out of the equation, you got to go with what else is popular. And for me, it would be Dragonlance. I know D&D published it and so forth, but I think the novels would have came out anyway. So I would have more or less Dragonlance races like Gully Dwarves, Kinder, Minotaurs, humans, the various elves. So it would be similar to what D&D is, but if you just said D&D alone, I think it still would be D&D like anyways. You got to take the token part out. If you take the token out, then it'd be more like Moorcock. Like I said, it just would really depend, but that's how I would. So, Fantasy Hero 6E or Fantasy Hero Complete, which is better? Update. I bought Fantasy Hero Complete and found there was no figure characteristics. This seems odd. Thanks for your suggestions. Okay, I think you did the right thing, getting Fantasy Hero Complete. I know it might seem odd. Points figure out the same, and it works out the same too. In my opinion, 6E is good in this situation because of people were modifying their figure characteristics anyway, so with limitations and whatnot, and so buying them straight was inevitable. But like I said, you bought Fantasy Hero Complete, which has all the rules really necessary for Fantasy Hero without all the extra rulings and stuff which really doesn't apply. Deathtraps are a staple of the genre, but hard to pull off in a game. They're easy to do in scripted media, where you can build the drama until unveiling what the hero needs to discover escape. But you're relying on the player to figure it out. It's harder to build that tension. It's either obvious to how to escape or impossible. What death traps have you used in your games, and do they work as intended? Well, you want to know the death traps I've used in my games? Watch any Batman 1966 episode, and all the death traps in there I used at least once, not necessarily in a superhero game, which I'm assuming that's what you're talking about as far as genre is concerned, but I have used them in fantasy hero games as well. What you really need to do is get player buy-in, first of all. And then the next thing you have to do is don't rely on die rolls to have your characters do their escape. You have to put a timer involved. If that means get a timer, hourglass timer to give the players to just find out what happens, or if they get the saw blade and cuts them up or whatever, to build that tension, it will work. But like I said, don't make it all reliant on die rolls. You already know what the characters are capable of. Make it very difficult. Not impossible, but give them an out as well. Not just a die roll that's really difficult to do, or there's something real easy that they didn't think of, that lever or switch may be the thing that does it, or increases the tension and makes the timer go faster. That's how I handle death traps. How would you write up cleric abilities like Turn Undead and Detect Evil? Well, easy to say. They have always been in Fantasy Hero, and pretty much basically it's all of this information is available in Fantasy Hero, regardless of edition. For Turn Undead, plus 60 presence, only to make presence attacks, only works against undead creatures, extra time, limited effect, only when serving God's purposes, and for 60 active, 12 real points. You can make it stronger by increasing the presence, and you can make it cheaper by adding a foci, which typically I do in Fantasy Hero campaigns, since you're mentioning cleric abilities. Detect Evil is Detect Evil. No set script, intelligence roll. Extra time, requires a faith roll, and it costs 5 points. And it's 10 active. And you got a couple options there too. You can remove the limitations to make it free, or you can make it practice to add discriminatory and range so they can determine how far away it is, how intense it is, and what particular type of evil it is. What do you use to figure range? I personally, I count the hexes, and I use 2 meter hexes, so that's how I do it. But if you have altitude included, you can, what I do is each hex in a diagonal to wherever the height is 3 meters instead of 2 meter hexes. You can also, if you're not doing online, you can use string, which I saw was a great suggestion, or you can use a tape measure to measure out how long the actual distance is. Final one, and it is, I'm interested in taking a break from D&D and other level systems. I'm going to try using Fantasy Hero 3rd, I'm thinking edition, to either play my own world or Middle Earth. Any tips? Anything I should look out for? Well, know your topic. I'm going to assume you know Middle Earth. So, that being said, um, the only tips I have is make sure you go through the rules, of course, and the things you should look out for is spells. So I do recommend that you get Grimoire, any edition, because it will easily convert to the third edition that you're playing, and also a bestiary. There's a little one that comes in the third edition book. It's not totally great. I hate to say that because there's not that many in the mythological section of that book, but I do recommend getting a bestiary, hero system bestiary. Again, any addition will work because the values are the same. It's just the costs are going to be different, and you can easily convert that over for your game. As far as the Middle Earth part is concerned, I do recommend Middle Earth role playing. It's by ICE if you can find it. It is a percentile system, so it's easy to convert. Not to say it does have conversion rules for not for hero specific, but it does have it for hero like point values and such. So it's pretty easy to work